The wild and wacky format for this year's Texas All-Star Race has been revealed, and NASCAR is in Dover this weekend, so I think it's fitting we talk about the future, or maybe lack thereof, for Dover Motor Speedway. How's it going, y'all? My name is Eric. Welcome to Out of the Groove. I hope you've had a great week. It's been a busy one. The Xfinity Series is on track for practice and qualifying. As of the time I'm filming this, they race this weekend. The Cup Series races at Dover as well. The one and only Dover date on the schedule this season. We're going to talk about that towards the end of the show, but I want to begin by reacting to the big news yesterday. NASCAR revealed this year's Texas All-Star Race format, and no surprise, they're shaking things up. It's different than last year's, but it's still very creative, to say the least, despite longtime Texas Motor Speedway president Eddie Gossage not being involved. Let's begin with their new qualifying format. Oh boy, if you hate comparing racing to stick and ball sports, buckle your seatbelts. Practice will be simple, 15 to 20 minutes for the cars that are in the All-Star Open, and then they'll have a 15 to 20 minute session for cars that are already locked into the All-Star Race main event. The first round of qualifying will look very familiar. Single car runs, one lap, they'll go out in reverse order of owner points, and the top 8 advance to the next round. But now that second round is where things get wild. You probably already read ahead, but yes, the top 8 will compete in a tournament-style head-to-head matchup based bracket. The elimination bracket will feature 2 cars staged in side-by-side pit stalls near the end of pit road. The pit crews will then perform a 4-tire stop, and the drivers will exit their pit stall onto the track with no speed limit. The first car to the finish line advances to the next round, and the final pairing will compete for the pole award. Someone had a lot of fun coming up with this. I'm excited to see it. It's different. I love that in the last 5-10 years or so now, NASCAR has been willing to take risks with the qualifying format for the All-Star Race, going all the way back to the first year they had guys flying onto pit road at full speed. I don't know, I always liked that. I always thought this was cool. And I love that they're getting the pit crews involved. And we'll talk about that more when we talk about the All-Star Race format as well. But I love that NASCAR is focusing in on the team element. The drivers are the stars, but pit crews have a major role to play. In some ways, this also brings back the old pit crew challenge they used to do in Charlotte years ago that they haven't done for like more than a decade now. Pit crews head to head on pit road trying to do a 4-tire stop faster, sending their drivers out almost side by side. Like, I kind of like it. It's the All-Star Race. Have fun with it. Don't take it too seriously. I like it. I'm looking forward to watching this. Now let's talk about the All-Star Open, which will take place just before the main All-Star Race on Sunday, May 22nd. This format is really simple. Stage 1 is 20 laps with the winner advancing to the All-Star Race. Then Stage 2, 20 laps, winner advances to the All-Star Race. And the final stage is a 10-lap sprint with, once again, the winner advancing to the All-Star Race. Then, of course, there will be a 4th eligible driver who gets in via the fan vote, so pretty typical. That's how the Open has gone the last couple years, I believe, regardless of whether it's been Texas, Bristol, or even Charlotte, really. Pretty similar format, so the All-Star Open is pretty easy to follow along, pretty straightforward. Now let's talk about the All-Star Race itself. Look, even though I'm from Texas, Texas Motor Speedway is my home track. It's the first track I ever saw a race at. I'm not gonna lie to you, Texas Motor Speedway would not be my first pick to host an All-Star Race. It would be towards the bottom. But contracts are contracts. Look at it this way. A couple of years ago, there were 2 500-mile Texas dates in the same year. Now we still have the one in the fall, but now at least the spring date has become a much shorter, a much wackier All-Star event. So in some cases, NASCAR, SMI, their hands are tied, contracts are in place, certain things are expected. Texas Motor Speedway is not an exciting track these days, but at least by hosting the All-Star Race, it allows NASCAR and the powers that be to let their creativity shine. Yes, this is a real race for $1 million. That's real money, but it is an exhibition. So put on a show, and Texas Motor Speedway allows you to do that. So here's the actual All-Star Race format. I don't think it's quite as complicated as last year's, but I'll be honest, I've kind of forgotten about last year's format at this point. It basically went in one ear, out the other. This year's race will feature 3 25-lap stages. The winner at the end of each stage will start in the top 3 positions for the final stage. So going one at a time, the winner of stage 1 will start on the pole for the final stage, as long as he finishes 15th or better in stages 2 and 3. That's an extra wrinkle to encourage drivers to still run well, even though they may already be locked into a front row starting spot in the final stage. Anyway, stage 2. The winner of stage 2 will start second in the final stage, again, as long as he finishes 15th or better in stage 3, and then stage 3. Winner of that stage will start third. Now, you notice there, in between stages 2 and 3, during that stage break, there is going to be a pit stop competition. Each team must pit and perform a 4-tire stop. The team with the shortest time on pit road wins the pit crew award, and the driver will start 4th in the final stage as long as he finishes 15th or better in stage 3. Again, getting the pit crews involved. They had something similar to this last year, so I like that. So for the final 50 lap stage, the stage 1 winner will start 1st, stage 2 winner will start 2nd, the stage 3 winner will start 3rd, and the pit stop competition winner will start 4th. It's a straight up 50 lap stage. Whoever wins it wins the $1 million. Now, there will be a caution between lap 15 and 25 unless a natural caution occurs during that time frame. So again, NASCAR is going to try to keep the field as bunched up as they possibly can. But there you have it. In a nutshell, that's the all-star race format. It took what? How many minutes are in RE? Yeah, not the most straightforward thing in the world, but I'd say I think it's a little less convoluted than last year's based on what I remember. Even though this year has that wild qualifying system, but which I'm looking forward to. I'm looking forward to that bracket style pit road face-off. My advice was similar last year, but if you're planning to sit down and watch the all-star race this year, which I encourage you to do so, I suggest you just sit back, relax, and let the racing happen. I wouldn't let myself get so hung up on all these little rules and details and, oh, when's the stage break? Wait, when's the pit crew competition? I would just sit back and just let them feed me content for 2 hours or however long it lasts. I think if you try to keep up with every little detail for this one-off event, you're just gonna give yourself a headache. So I gave similar advice last year. I'm gonna say it again this year. Just let the racing come to you. NASCAR and SMI really are trying to build this up for fans in attendance. Of course, you've probably already seen the advertising for Blake Shelton. He's gonna do a pre-race show before the All-Star Open. I think he's doing like an hour-long concert, so that's pretty cool. And I saw something on Texas Motor Speedway's official website. Apparently, during the 3 stage breaks, they're gonna shoot someone out of a cannon, like in front of everyone in the grandstand. So I don't know, they did something like this at Circuit of the Americas a few weeks ago before the race, away from the grandstands. COTA was an SMI sanctioned event. This is an SMI sanctioned event. They probably called the same guy. It's probably gonna be the same dude launching himself across the trial if I had to guess. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. So Texas Motor Speedway is pulling out a lot of non-racing related shenanigans to try and attract the casual viewer, or at least give even the hardcore viewers something different that you don't see every day to enjoy. They're trying to build this as a big at-track in-person event, and I think it has a chance of being successful, or at least more successful than recent Texas Motor Speedway races have. Like, go back to last fall's race, a playoff race. I mean, there were like maybe 20,000 people there, and that's maybe being generous. Those huge grandstands just do not look good when they're not even a quarter full. So hopefully the All-Star race fills in a few more gaps than they have in recent years. I'll say this, across the board, and I was reading an NBC Sports article earlier today, across the board attendance is up at almost every track this year. SMI reported a 20% increase in attendance this year through their first 4 sanctioned races. Of course, they own Las Vegas, Atlanta, Bristol, and Circuit of the Americas in this case. In that NBC Sports article, they mentioned Talladega saw its biggest crowd since 2017. The Bristol Dirt Race saw the biggest crowd for the spring event since 2017. Martinsville said it was their biggest crowd since 2015. Atlanta said it was their biggest crowd since 2014. And the Daytona 500 sold out earlier than it has in recent years. So across the board, pretty much attendance is up this year. I hope at least some of that trickles into the All-Star race at Texas Motor Speedway. I'm planning to be at the race at this point. It's not too far of a drive for me. I might as well go check it out, see what all the hubbub is about. I hope to see a lot of you guys there. Again, Texas Motor Speedway, not the greatest track in the world, not the greatest race in the world, but if there's reason to be optimistic, the next gen car put on a great show at Las Vegas, another 1.5 miles, put on a great show at Fontana, another intermediate, and the last time a major racing series competed at Texas Motor Speedway, it was IndyCar a few weeks ago. And I know those cars don't drive, race, handle anything like NASCAR cars, but it's worth pointing out that race ended with a dramatic last lap pass, nearly a photo finish across the line. It was IndyCar's best Texas Motor Speedway race in the last few years, so if there's reason to be optimistic, there you have it. I'm always going to be slightly partial to Texas because of the nostalgia, because of personal sentimental feelings I have for this racetrack. Hopefully it doesn't let me down like it has more times than not the last few years. Anyway, real quick before we wrap this show up, before we wrap this week up, NASCAR's racing in Dover this weekend, and we just talked about one struggling SMI-owned track. Now let's talk about another, unfortunately, struggling SMI-owned track. That's right, Dover International Speedway is no more. It is now Dover Motor Speedway, owned by SMI. Jerry Bonkowski, who's a longtime NASCAR writer, he's written for ESPN, NBC, Auto Week, and many, many more. He currently writes for the Out of the Groove Weekly Viewers Guide and is also the co-host of the A Lifetime in NASCAR podcast. He wrote an interesting piece in this week's Weekly Viewers Guide, actually, which I'll link down in the description below. In it, he theorizes that this could be one of, if not the, final races at Dover Motor Speedway. The track hosted 2 races a year for decades, and then recently they cut that back down to 1. Now Speedway Motorsports bought it, and back when we talked about that transaction many months ago, we talked about how SMI might just be buying Dover and Nashville Superspeedway for their dates on the calendar, because SMI owns short tracks like Nashville Fairgrounds, which they've been trying to revitalize, trying to renovate, and North Wilkesboro, which may never host a Cup Series race, but they're hoping to bring NASCAR there in the next couple of years. Dover, as Jerry Bonkowski points out, has been struggling to fill its grandstands for several years now. SMI has a history of doing this kind of thing. Go back to North Wilkesboro, how Texas Motor Speedway and New Hampshire added dates to the schedule. Jerry's belief is that Dover's one and only date will go to Nashville Fairgrounds, maybe as early as next year. I don't think it'll happen that fast. I think there's still plenty of political red tape that Nashville Fairgrounds is working through. It's a slow process over there. But I do fully believe the Cup Series will race at the fairgrounds once again, probably in the next couple of years. And when that happens, yes, I would expect Dover to be the first track SMI executives look at possibly losing their date. SMI has been ruthless in recent years. They've tried some bold new things like Bristol Dirt, Charlotte Roval, but they've also cut tracks off the speedway completely, like Kentucky. Things are changing fast in and around the NASCAR world, and I hope Dover sticks around. I'd love to see Dover continue to have one date a year, but it hasn't been a hit with fans for a while now, outside of that 2016 spring race where Jimmy caused that huge wreck on the restart, and you had Larson, Elliott, and Kenseth battling for them. That was one of the last times I feel Dover truly delivered. I'll be really curious to see what the stands look like this weekend. As I mentioned, many tracks this year are seeing an uptick in attendance, an uptick in TV ratings. I hope Dover sees something similar. Used to be one of the biggest tracks up there in the Northeast, biggest as far as attendance and hype and everything. Now it's kind of an afterthought, unfortunately. No one wants to see the Monster Mile go away permanently, but the writing could be on the wall, unfortunately. So I just want to mention that. I don't think Dover goes away after this year. I think they'll be around at least one more year, but we'll see. If the Nashville Fairgrounds deal starts moving along faster, I do think Fairgrounds will replace Dover on the schedule if and when that deal finally comes together. That's just my prediction. They could always choose to drop the Nashville Superspeedway off the calendar once their contract is up in 3 years. That's also possible. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't think Dover's future is quite as desolate as like Chicagoland Speedway's is at this point. So reason to be optimistic, but I thought that was an interesting piece. I encourage you guys to go check it out and just keep that in the back of your minds. We're watching racing this weekend, possibly for the last time at Dover Motor Speedway. Didn't mean to end this week on such a down note, talking about struggling tracks like Dover, like Texas. But anyway, share your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you think we're way off base on this? Do you think Dover will be around for years and years and years? Let me know what you think down in the comment section below. But that is going to do it for this episode of Out of the Groove. Thank you all so much for watching. If you're new to the channel, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future episodes. And as always, a big thank you to my remarkable Patreon supporters for supporting the show each and every month. I greatly appreciate it. I'm not at Dover this weekend, but I will be at Darlington the week after. Got some exciting things in the works and some exciting things to announce in the not so distant future. Thanks for watching, y'all. Have a fantastic weekend. I will see you after Sunday's race.